My name's James. I'm from Azur Games. A little bit about our company. We're famous for robot warfare, space armada, World War heroes, mobile PvP games, and we have some more projects coming along the way as well that we're really excited about. A bit about myself to continue. I came from an architect background, and from there I made the leap into making 3D environments for video games. One of my biggest games, we went from soft launch all the way to 100 million downloads. And we continue the success now. So, what's this talk about? It's not going to be a super technical talk. It's more to discuss the fundamentals with regards to levels and the art in the levels. So maybe you're an indie developer, maybe you're a 3D artist who's looking to learn a bit more about it. Maybe you're a generalist who wants to do it all by himself. This talk, these fundamentals, should guide you in the right direction so that you can get a good result. So it normally goes like this, right? We start off with the idea, the general blockout. The blockout is where our character can just run around and jump. We hand that over to, ideally, a concept artist. They collect the reference, they do some overpainting, and then, ta-da, final product, yeah? Simple. Of course, no. So that's what we're going to talk about today, that whole middle part. Is it just me or is the slide going down a bit? So how do we get our audience's attention with our levels and our environment art? And how do we keep their attention as well, most importantly? So here come the 12 fundamentals. You guys ready? Yeah. Firstly, fun. What can be more fun? Can I just fix this, please? What could be more fun than hamsters on a roller coaster? So your level's got to be fun. It's got to be fun to look at. It's got to be fun to navigate. It's got to be fun to explore. So imagine, if you will, a roller coaster. Now, if you were constantly dropping nonstop, it wouldn't be very fun, would it? So you need these moments of anticipation. Your level should be the same. You should just have some quiet moments where you need quiet moments, and then save that big reveal or that big wow moment for maybe when your character reaches the end of the level, or if he reaches the top of the mountain, or he takes the corner and he sees the beautiful vista. So it's about the anticipation first. Conversely, we also have idle moments in gameplay. We've all been there. We're spawning, and we're waiting for everyone to join. We're waiting, and we're staring at the same environment. Why not make that more interesting? Why not put some effects in the environment? Maybe some tips in the corner, you know, some graffiti on the wall to kind of break away the monotony of the players waiting. Where there's discomfort, try and create comfort. So it's at this point we can discuss the big reads. What is a big read, basically? It's the first thing you notice, because obviously we're looking on small mobile devices and we're trying to get our players' attention. You know, and a lot of times players aren't as invested as they are when they're buying a PC or a console game. So you have quite a limited time to capture their attention, and such a small device as well. You need elements like this. So perhaps when you're looking at your own game, think to yourself, does it have that wow factor? How do I add that wow factor? Perhaps what you need is a big read. Something that tells you straight away what kind of gameplay you're in, perhaps the setting. Because if you walk out of the airport in Paris and you see the Eiffel Tower, it can tell you a lot straight away. And we'll discuss this a little bit more further down the line. Fundamental number 2, showcase. The art on the level must showcase the idea and the mechanics. So what does this mean? Does this mean you need complex art if you have simple game mechanics? Of course, no. Sometimes, well, any developers here will tell you, If you've got very simple mechanics, just use one color for the background, or perhaps some gradient. A lot of people seem to think if I make my artwork amazing, it will fix the other problems. The thing is, the gameplay and the artwork have to complement each other. There should be a balance. Showcase, again. Like I said, they should complement each other. It's not a competition. And it's important to know the sizes when you're creating for your environment. The sizes of the NPCs, the sizes of the creatures, the sizes of your main character. Mainly because it's very bad for players if you create objects that block the gameplay as well. So you'll see this in a lot of playtesting sometimes. Perhaps you've made a tree prop and you're caught in a corner and the tree is just blocking and you can't see the characters who are attacking you. This is actually very bad and uncomfortable for players. So playtest, playtest, playtest. When I'm talking about showcasing, I'm talking about obviously first when you're designing, you're showcasing inside your studio. And then the second part of showcasing is when you actually release it to the public. For showcasing inside the studio, you should be playtesting every new idea. And as an environment artist or a level designer, if you're doing both tasks yourself, try and design within the limits of the blockout and don't go beyond it unless you want to discuss it with the level designer first, because it can change the core gameplay, essentially. And sometimes you can get a good idea and it goes outside of the blockout and it can work. So, and it's important. Playtesting is very important. If you're not playtesting your own game every day that you're working on, there's something seriously wrong there. If you're not going to enjoy it, how do you expect the public to enjoy it? And I was saying with props as well, be prepared to delete a lot of assets that you make. Be prepared to probably add another asset. Maybe you need another tree in there just to help sell the level a bit more. Story. So your environment has to tell a story. Now, in this example, we can see radars in the background. It's kind of like a desert, and then there's a sci-fi military base in the foreground. Perfect. As a player, I don't have to think, right? I can just complete my mission. It's telling me everything I need to know from initial look. And you can be obvious, or you can be subtle. What do I mean by obvious? Well, it can be a dead body on the floor. It can be blood on the wall. Subtle, maybe a Statue of Liberty faded in the background, post-apocalyptic. And this is where props come in really handy for your game. A simple prop, maybe a sci-fi crate or some sci-fi military boxes, things like this. It can tell you more and more about the story and the setting. I mean, imagine, if you will, you have a sign, it's pointing to the left, and in blood underneath is death this way. You're going to be more inclined to go to the right, not so? So just little things like this can really help sell your level. Balance. A good level has to have balance visually and with the core idea of the game. So I'm going to give you a really extreme example. It's a sci-fi shooter, you're running around, you're on the spaceship, and you open a door and there's a horse stable with horses. Like, why? That has nothing to do with the core idea of the game. It makes no sense. And you may enjoy it, but your community is going to go, there's something wrong here. And they're not going to hesitate to let you know it doesn't work. You need to ask yourself, does the character belong in the level? So, I've been there myself. You have ArtStation and you think, this reference looks cool. I'm going to take this cool reference and I'm going to make something cool and everything's just going to be cool and everything's going to be great. I'm not saying it won't work. It's important to have reference, but if it's done wrong or it doesn't stick to the core idea, eventually it is not going to work because your art and your references have to support the world or character you're portraying. And on that note, the background shouldn't overpower the foreground and or the actor. With this, you can probably just adjust the colors a little bit. Perhaps your environment is too bright, or perhaps your character is too bright. just try and make them blend together. If it looks like they don't belong together, you need to fix that. And I know a lot of us, sometimes we work for someone and let's say, for an example, the boss has played a game this weekend and he goes, I want the level to look like this now. And that's again, this is okay. You can add this maybe in a subtle manner, but maybe it's worth telling your boss or even telling yourself if you want to make this cool element, well, it's not going to be cool in 3 months when I've made this environment. Yeah? So try and keep it relevant, and better don't follow the trend, set the trend or improve upon it. Don't be a sheep, you know? Choices. We have to let the player feel like they're making decisions. I'm not talking about forced gameplay. What's forced gameplay? That's when you have to kill 2 enemies, and then the camera moves, and then you have to kill the next 2 enemies, and you're forced to kind of watch the level unfold. I'm talking more about open gameplay. You know, shooters you can run around, explore. A good level is something that is totally replayable and is enjoyable from every angle. If your players keep coming back and they get comfortable in your level and they know where they can go, this is a good thing. Don't punish your players for improvising as well, for the choices they make. In this example, we can see there's a capture point right in the center there, well, far off. And here the player has choices. He can take the direct route, be suicidal straight run. He can take the long way around. You know, he can encounter different enemy NPCs, whatever. Or he can take the high ground, see his enemies coming. Thing is, the result will be the same, but the choice is up to the player. He can be aggressive, you know, or he can be defensive. It's up to him. He can choose areas where he has more cover, or he can just run and strafe and shoot. Here we're catering for the player's needs. And also on this note, sometimes we think it's clever to add a dead end or a false sign that kills the player instantly. Your players are just going to go, you're stupid, your game is stupid, it's broken. Because it's not fun for a player. They just think, why would you do that? They will constantly keep going to that dead end thinking that it has something important for them until they learn that, oh, okay, it's just bad level design. Symmetry. It's important for maps to have symmetry. And symmetry can mean a number of things. It doesn't just have to mean a mirrored world. In an arena-based game, a symmetrical map that is mirrored seems more like a fair fight. But just because it's symmetrical doesn't mean it has to be boring. For example, you could have a pyramid on the left, and then on the right, put a completely different building. And it's the same block out, it will serve the same function, you'll still have the same type of gameplay, but it'll look different. The player will know instantly when they spawn, oh, okay, I'm on this side of the map. Sometimes it's just as simple as coloring one side different than the other. Let's say you have short time to make a map. Sometimes maybe just add a little bit of damage to the texture, just to break up the monotony and so that the player knows where he is. So unique landmarks, like I was saying, just help the player straight away. There's nothing more frustrating than spawning and not knowing where you are. Especially in most mobile games, if your battles are between, let's say, 2 to 6 minutes, it's very important that the player knows where they are pretty much immediately. And for 2D games as well, sometimes the symmetry with regard to 2D games, don't just place platforms for your character to jump just because that space looks empty. Think symmetrically how those levels are going to work. I mean, even in city builder games, remember it used to just be a square and then you build on the square. Now designers are understanding that that's actually a little bit boring for the eye. If we make it more symmetrical, connected islands, second levels, this is more interesting now, and we can actually, as players, orient ourselves within the city builder even. Even those games that use the endless loop, there has to be a symmetry with this because we need to know the length of the platform, We need to know the timing of the oncoming obstacles in the environment. We need to know the distance. So symmetry is very, very important. Interaction. So we want to reveal something new and exciting the whole time and teach the player a new mechanic as well. And don't be afraid to show your best level first to really sell it. Now, what do I mean by a new mechanic? Well, take this example. A zombie comes running at you, and he touches a red rock, and he explodes into a million pieces. This has taught you two things. One, don't touch the red rock. Two, the environment's interactive. You can even use it to kill your enemies. Another example is there's a weapon on the floor. Your character picks it up. The only way he can get out of this arena is either by mastering the weapon, perhaps he uses the weapon to blow open the door, or climb up higher. Here we're teaching a player a new mechanic. And also make it obvious how the environment mechanics work. So for instance, capture points or capture the flag. If a player is playing and he sees straight away, oh, okay, it turns blue if I stand there and it's captured, or oh, it's red, that means the enemy has it. Just very simple. And also, don't be afraid to diversify your levels. In fact, you should be diversifying your levels. What I mean by that is, you know, at level 5 have platforms that drop away and instantly kill the player, for a small example. This would have so much more impact if this slide was working nicely. Surprise! So we all get that it's always the jungle map, the desert map, the snow map, the dungeon, yeah? They're cliche. We all know them, but we as players, if we don't see them, we actually get a little bit annoyed. We kind of want them. So what we should do is we need to take those cliches and twist them, make something new, fun, and surprising. So if it's a zombie epic, why does it have to be dark? You could have a beautiful beach, and suddenly storm clouds come in, it starts raining, and all these zombie hands pop out of the sand and grab you. You know, it's more surprising, it's more memorable. And like we said earlier, pace it like a roller coaster, no routines. A lot of us employ mini-maps with our mobile games, right? So, for one, we should make it look a little bit more interesting. And two, why not manipulate the player a little bit? So in this example, we see the red dot. The player's in the building, but we don't know what floor he's on. He could be on the first floor. He could be on the third floor. This is more surprising for you now, because you don't know, am I going to find him? Is he going to sneak up on me, or am I going to sneak up on him? Here we're manipulating the player in the environment. Immersion. Ask yourself, would I want to explore this level? So you've got to give your players the escapism and the adventure that they're craving. So how do we create it more immersive? Well, for starters, we should be blending our textures and our objects. If you have a tree and you have terrain, put some little plants around the base just to sell a little bit more realism. Or if it's a spaceship that's crashed, have a trail of debris and an impact crater. Just really sell the immersive experience. Put the blood and sweat on the camera, you know? At Azur, we aim for 10 out of 10 when we design our levels visually and also by the level itself, how it plays. Now, it's easy for me to say, oh, just make 10 out of 10. Well, how do we get that 10 out of 10? Or at least aim for an 8, right? How do you get there? Well, the key word is honesty. When you're playtesting, you have to be 100% honest. Everyone who's playtesting needs to say, you know what, that wall wasn't working really. Like it was too high, it gave the enemy more of an advantage. Use playtesting in the beginning to like really be honest and understand your level better. Because what will happen is a metamorphosis from your blockout. There'll be revelations in the design that will make you think, oh, okay, I need a tree there, or maybe it's better if there's a pathway through this blockout that would make it more fun and engaging. So try and aim for 8 out of 10, at least. Challenges. Introduce visual challenges into your map. There's different kinds of challenges you can do. One is, the one main trap would be if you have a central beacon or capture point, but going to that central beacon or capture point actually exposes you to enemies. Imagine there's a beautiful castle and you need to capture a point there. You go there, but there's so many holes in the doors and windows that you're basically taking on a lot of fire. It's basically a Venus flytrap for you. And here we can see there's a power-up on the second floor, right? So imagine the obvious ladder is broken. How do you get to that power-up? Well, did the player notice that there's some pipes to the left or to the right? Are those pipes a different color? So he knows, oh, okay, I can climb those pipes and get to the second level. And even with 2D games, sometimes you're playing a 2D game and you can just see a power-up in the corner somewhere, but you're not sure how to reach it. And then the player learns later on, oh, okay, well, I have a jetpack now, I can go back and replay that level. That's actually pretty fun. But also, make sure that if you're giving rewards, make sure that it justifies the effort. If a player is falling down a pit 20 times just to reach one extra life, it's not really worth his time to do it. As I said, we didn't really touch on the technical stuff so much. This is probably as technical as it's going to get right now. You should have a modular mindset when you're creating your levels. I've had some projects where I've made 143 unique items in one small level. I've had some projects where I've just made 10, and they both function exactly the same, and players loved both of them. What is a modular asset, though, right? It's one asset that you can model uniquely on, that you can turn it around, you can manipulate it, and it looks kind of different from every angle. Or perhaps you don't want it to look different. You do just want to make it once and retile it in your scene over and over. Also, keep in mind, for a mobile game, you're probably going to have to share your textures. And when you're sharing these textures as well, you've got to ask yourself the question, is it worth having a large space for texture for sci-fi crates or something when it's a small object? Rather use more space for like the big objects or the walls that a player goes close to. Use props for breaking up the repetition in a scene. When you create a prop, use it to, think of it as like makeup covering up scars, right? If players can see where the textures are touching, maybe just put some rocks there just to break it up. Excuse me. Obviously, you're going to have to delete a lot of assets that you make. That happens. Maybe it's a bit easier for me because I came from an architectural background. The best advice I can give is try and just use architectural logic and theory. So in this example, you wouldn't place a 40-story building on the edge of a long balcony. It's without support beams. Even on another planet, it's kind of just feels unbalanced to players when they look at this. And a usual practice for me is, if I'm in a blockout, I'll try and get to the highest point, and I'll look around 360. Or I'll just run around and find areas where I get stuck a lot. And I'll take a screenshot of that, and then I'll start to design by silhouette, which is I just quickly draw over and see what forms could work in each one, maybe in the distance, or maybe for the objects in the foreground. Be prepared to draw a lot of them, and be prepared to model a lot of them, be prepared to delete a lot of it, or keep it. I actually noticed this a lot as well in very popular, famous games like for console, that they don't follow architectural fundamentals with regards to guiding the players. So if you're in a level and you have no idea where to go, like that's actually very bad architectural design. The buildings should kind of inform you the direction with which you should go. So let your buildings guide the players. Emotion. What feeling do you want to evoke in that area? What mood do you want to create? Do you want your players to be happy or sad? Do you want it to be light or joyful? Do you want it to be mysterious, foggy? Do you want them to be confused? And create spatial empathy as well. Perhaps you want the map to be wide open and the player feels isolated, or this sense of freedom. And then also think if you're doing a battle map, interiors, keep it simple, interiors, hardly any room to maneuver, but lots of cover. Outside, you can strafe and run, but limited cover. Sometimes the simplest things are the most effective. And don't forget to employ color with the use of emotion. Red for anger, blue for moments of calm. Something like this, you can literally download off the internet for free, So print it out, stick it on the wall. If you're not sure what colors are complementary. Yeah, so let's recap. The 12 fundamentals. Number 1, the level should be fun. Remember the hamsters, right? Fun to explore, fun to navigate. 2, you should showcase your environment and playtest, playtest, playtest. 3, let your environment tell a story, or tell the story you want it to tell, the story. Number 4, make sure your environment is balanced visually. 5, people love a level that offers choices. So give them choices. Yay, I got to choose left or right. Awesome. I'll download that game 20 times. 6, a symmetrical map is easier to navigate. And symmetrical doesn't just have to mean boring. 7, make your environment interactive. 8, surprise your players. Surprise yourself even. 9, immerse them into an adventure. 10, create challenging levels. 11, a modular mindset and logical architectural design, and design by silhouette, obviously. And 12, let the players feel like, you should feel like a chef creating the perfect meal. You have all these ingredients, you don't know the name of the dish, but you're just creating something awesome. And you know what, players, they can sense if you put your love, your passion, and your creativity into your project or your level, players are going to notice this and they're going to applaud it. So thank you to DevGum for having us here. Thank you to Azur for letting me present. Thank you, guys.
All right, the questions. Please raise your hands.
Hello. Thank you very much for this very nice lecture.
Hello.
I have a question. Do you have special mobile devices like this? Most part of this lecture was about the whole level design for a lot of games. So do you have like a special tips for mobile games? What do you think about it?
Tips as in when designing, or
when level design for mobile games comparing to like PC games,
well, pretty much you can follow these guidelines. If you want some more tips, I can recommend just don't get stuck in the details when you're creating something, especially in the initial stages. Is make something kind of quick and see if the forms work, and that experimental phase should be quite quick. And then when you find the forms that work and the level that works, then start going in the details of the texturing and the cleaning up the model. Is that okay?
Okay, the next
Someone
one.
else?
Thank you for your lecture, and I want to ask you a question. Which game have a best level design at all time?
This is. Are we talking mobile or PC? Of
console,
all time?
PC, or...
Oh, jeez. It's up to you pretty much. But I would say it's pretty old school, but God of War, the original trilogy, the environment was actually a character. So that was pretty amazing. I think they started that. But these days, there's so many. I'm more a fan of open world games these days, like Division, things like this. Yeah.
What do you think about The Last of Us
2? I love those kinds of games. I play them. I take my money, but I don't feel like it has so much replay value again. Like I play it once and then it's next game. Like for me, yeah, I prefer levels that I can explore more and go find some more stuff. What's your favorite game?
Maybe Doom 2.
Doom 2.
By John Romero.
Definitely replayable, yeah?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
I see you.
Hi, thank you very much. Very interesting and exciting and really, really useful not only for UI designer or UX designers, also for project managers. Here is my question. I would like to ask you, how many blade tests do you usually do to check the reaction for 3D models or for new UI? So maybe you can give some recommendations or advices.
I can tell you our process for the project I'm currently working on. What we do is we all have different devices that we test on. Sometimes it's our own one. Obviously, the program is set up a network that we play internally, and we play every day. Every day, I'm not kidding. And we play, at the moment, we only have 3 maps, so we're playing these 3 maps every day. And it's actually fun. You find that you actually get excited about the game you're making, you know? I can't stress that enough. I think when I see a project's not working, usually the source is because they don't play test it enough. You should literally force your team to play test it. If someone's not play testing it, they're just there to kind of, you know, make money or whatever.
So here is a question, the second question. How many, for example, models, variants of the models do you do usually for one object, for example? So it could be a building. So how many variants do you do to find out that it really works?
Usually the first one is never the correct one. Like, I'll be 100% honest. I've had some moments where I've remade a building 20 times, you know, and I still look at it and go like, oh, why did I do that? And then there's some moments where I make an object once and then, okay, just touch it up a little bit more, you know, just to be extra satisfied with it. And I think I mentioned earlier as well, like I've had projects where I've made 10 modular assets and the level looks amazing. And then I've had games where it's been, I think I made a Rome map and it was literally 143 buildings. And that's not including props. Then there was the trees. Obviously someone else was doing props, thankfully. But yeah, and you think you have to texture that, and all of those objects are sharing one atlas as well. So to make that unique as well, from my experience, if I feel like it's looking a little bit the same, just take screenshots and say, okay, maybe if I just put a prop here, it'll break up these moments when it looks the same. You're welcome.
Any other questions, please?
Hi. Thank you for your talk. My question is kind of philosophical, but still. What do you think about procedural level design and handcrafted level design? Is it possible to create a procedural level design system that can compete with the handcrafted levels?
I'm glad you actually, that's a good question. All of them are good questions, but yeah. I actually get very annoyed with this Unity or Unreal terrain where you just paint the rocks or you paint the trees. It just, you should be in control of every element. You should have a nice composition for all your moments. Like even the trees, the leaves, everything should be 100% controlled. This kind of just copy and paste it frustrates me, you know. I like control. Yeah. Does that answer your question, or kind of?
Hi, James. Thanks for exciting lecture. So I've got a question. What do you think? Is it harder to create levels for 3D games or arenas for 3D encounters, like in games like Horizon or maybe Last of Us, or to create 2D levels for games such Metroid or like this?
I think
what is harder?
It's obviously, you know, AAA, the console PC games. That's a lot of work, but they have the time to put that work in. Each one has its own challenges as well. You know, like making 2D games isn't as easy as people think. Environments for that, because it's a lot of color matching and blending of textures, and also again sharing atlases. I'd say these open world games are a little bit more of a challenge because, like I said, when you're replaying, you have to kind of get comfortable with the level and not be bored in that level, especially if you're playing it every day, you know? So yeah, open world is difficult.
Okay, any questions?